Loading. Okay, guys. Um, I'm going to be talking for like the next 20 to 30 minutes, but I'm hoping that you guys interact with me to make it a little bit more like we're in person. The talk is going to be about responsible AI and how project managers can create solutions without negative consequences to humankind. Now, not everything's at our shoulders, but as tech leaders and as project managers, it's important for us to have an understanding. Okay. So, as Brad stated, I'm a program manager at Insight. I have over 15 years experience and I'm dedicated to delivering results-driven outcomes to my client. Currently, I'm with BlackRock. I've been with them for over 2 years now. My journey includes an MBA from Purdue University and a number of certifications, including the Microsoft AI 900, PMP, CSM, and the PAL EBM. Throughout my career, I've championed the cause of women in tech, Jen, and I've done volunteering with Girls Who Code in partnership with my client. I've also done some work with Inroads, which helps not only women, but a variety of underserved youth. And I've inspired and mentored technical professionals. In addition, I've also done fundraising for IT women and Dress for Success. And if any of you want to know more about those, we could take it offline, okay? So here's my brief bio. I should have put a picture of my cute little chihuahua, but he's not here. But I love cruising the azure blue waters of the Caribbean. This picture happens to be Alaska. I enjoy spending my time with my family. We love cruising together and we love vacationing just in general. We are going to South by Southwest in Austin. We have some music festivals scheduled. My daughters are a little add on, even though she's an adult, right? I also enjoy playing pickleball with my friends. And this picture, you guys may have seen this from 2022 at Mastery on Camelback Mountain. We did a group event. So our agenda for today, we're going to have interactive introduction with the key being on interactive. We're going to define AI and share a brief history of AI development. We're going to talk about what is responsible AI versus regular AI and why it's important. And then I said earlier that I have an AI 900 certification. That's Microsoft's AI certification. It's their intro. So I'm going to specifically talk about Microsoft's 2 perspectives and 6 principles of responsible AI. Each of the carriers have their own flavor of this, but this is where I have my expertise. So I'm going to focus on that. Also, we're going to do an in-depth look at only 2 of the principles of the 6 in this short presentation. We're going to talk about fairness and accountability. Then we'll have a brief discussion and Q&A, okay? So if you haven't already signed into VVAX, please do so, because it's going to make it just more interesting. Feel free to come off of mute and or raise your hand. So here's the VVAX. If Brad, if you would open the poll on the first question, please.
Sure.
Okay, everybody all set? Okay, what do you think? The rise of powerful AI will either be the best or the worst thing ever to happen to humanity. This was a quote by Professor Stephen Hawking. Okay, guys, polls are open. I believe it's the best thing to ever happen to humanity. I believe it's the worst thing that's ever happened, or I'm going to take a wait and see attitude. Brad, are we starting to get responses in?
We are.
Okay.
We have 17 so far.
Okay. We'll give another 20 seconds or so, and then Brad, you can close it and tell us what the results are, please.
Can we put the QR code in the chat? I didn't get a chance to scan that with my phone before we went off.
Here, I'll go back.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
There you go. There it is. Let me know when you got it.
I think Erica did put it in the chat too.
Okay. Okay, Brad, are we set?
John, are you in there? I'll give John an opportunity to get his vote in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I'm
the 30.
I'm the unvoted.
Good.
Okay,
so,
want to close it?
Yep, close it. Show us the results, please, or just read the results, please.
So far and away, I believe the need to wait and see how things go is 59%.
Okay.
AI is the worst thing that ever happened at 28%. And
wow.
AI is the best thing at 12%.
Okay. Now, before I go forward, this was like an icebreaker, think about a question. Would anybody like to speak up and say what they said and why they felt that way? Okay, John, Mr. Johnson, I can't see
John.
you. Delbert.
Yeah, it's John, but yeah, you're fine. So, I actually believe that AI is one of the best things that ever happened. And it's kind of a mixed feeling on that because there are some things that would potentially take people out of work, but in the same avenue, I think streamlining the process and making it more automated could open up other opportunities for other individuals to advance in other tech industries.
Thank you for sharing. Jen?
I put that it's the worst. I don't know that I really would go that far, but I do think that it makes people really lazy. They don't have to think through how they want to communicate, things like that. And there's so much potential for abuse. And obviously Skynet is legit thought in my mind.
Skynet,
Maybe not
Brad.
quite to that degree, but there's a lot of concern, and the more stuff we put online and automate that doesn't have eyes on it regularly, the more risk there is. And
Yeah,
so
we all
it
saw the movie,
concerns me a
man.
lot. Yeah,
And
right.
I see Casey has his hand raised.
I believe with the term AI is a little nebulous. We have been using artificial intelligence since we invented computers, so it's not as though it's new. What is new is generative AI, and that's when we say AI, that's what most people are thinking about is generative AI. And I'm with Jen on this. In the short time the generative AI has been available to the public, it has done only negative things to the world. Journalism was already tenuous and it's now completely dead, and it will continue to go even worse. We saw the writer's strike because they want AI to write movies, and it's going to steal jobs from artists and other creative types, which already there were not enough of those to go around. And as far as people in fields like ours, to John's point, yeah, people are and will continue to lose their jobs because of generative AI, and there's nowhere for them to go. I don't agree with the idea that it will free them up to do other things, because being fired from my job will not free me up to get another job. I don't think that's the way of thinking about things, especially in late stage capitalism as we are now.
Fair enough. Well, thank you everybody for your healthy discussion. I was worried that I wouldn't get any, so thank you very much. So for those of you who don't know, Stephen Hawking was a physicist who cautioned against AI. He urged creators to employ best practices. He said, unless we learn how to prepare for and avoid the potential risks, AI could be the worst event in the history of civilization. Those are pretty strong words. But he was not alone. Elon Musk shares his perspective, Bill Gates and Steve Wozniak. A couple of things to add to that. Although Stephen Hawking is against it, he has done some things. He created a organization to do governance, and with partnership with Microsoft and a number of companies. I believe, based on what I've been reading, that there's going to ultimately be some sort of like UN of generative AI. And you're right, it is generative AI at this point. But AI already was inching its way in. Generative AI is just going to be exponential, right? So that's why we're talking about this today. Fair enough, though. Fun fact, he did partner with Intel to create AI for speech recognition. As his ALS progressed and he had a more difficult time to communicate, he did use AI. So, you have to find ways to have it both ways. There's no escaping it at this point. So as project managers, how can we prepare to avoid the potential risks of AI? And when I say that, I mean specifically to humans, to humankind, to our society as a whole, okay? So let's start by talking about the types of AI, right? So Gen AI is AI teaching itself to do more AI, but underneath Gen AI, there's 5 fundamental types. And I did this presentation in September of last year at the South Florida PMI, and a lot of people found this slide most interesting because they didn't really understand what the fundamentals were. So machine learning, it's the foundation for AI systems and the way we teach a computer to model and make predictions and draw conclusions. Google, Alexa, Siri, right? Anomaly detection, looking at data, finding errors or differentials. Think about your credit card company calling you and telling you there's a fraud alert. That's anomaly detection. Also think about manufacturing systems and failures. You know, my daughter is an engineer, reliability engineer, and I'm not allowed to say what she does because it's secret, but she deals with this type of stuff, like monitoring potential failures, dealing with after action reports related to the failures. Let's move forward to computer vision. That's the capability of software to interpret the world around us, cameras, videos, images. Think security surveillance, autonomous vehicles. Also, there's some software being created to help visually impaired people. They have special glasses that helps them like kind of figure out the world around them through computer vision. Natural language processing, we've all dealt with this. It's a chatbot, the capability of the computer to interpret written and spoken language and then ultimately respond. Oftentimes, natural language processing and knowledge mining go hand in hand. So you clicked like, or you did a Google review, or any sort of interaction with social media. You made a comment. So natural language processing interprets your sentiment, and the knowledge mining takes large amounts of unstructured data and creates a searchable knowledge store. You know, you ever talk in front of your phone and all of a sudden you're getting advertisements. You ever like a post of your friends who went to Hawaii and all of a sudden you're getting ads for flying to Hawaii, right? Happens all the time. So these are the fundamental forms of AI. So basically AI as a whole is the creation of software that imitates human behaviors and capabilities. Any questions? Thoughts?
It's a scary thought.
Yeah. This isn't new though. Okay, so this is one of my favorite slides. It's kind of a random throw-in, but I really like it. So as we look at the AI development history timeline, 1950 was when Alan Turing was the first one to trick a human into thinking it was a computer, that they were talking to a human being. Sorry, I said that wrong, but that's the idea of it. The word AI or artificial intelligence was coined in 1956, right around the time of rock and roll. Just joking. I'm from Cleveland. That's a big debate about who coined the term and where it came from. Joseph Weizenbaum, a chatbot capable of holding conversations with humans. Moving forward, Apple integrates iPhone, Siri as an intelligent search assistant. Amazon launches Alexa. Around 2020 is when we start to see Gen AI as a possibility. ChatGPT tool, automated conversations is introduced. It's still kind of in beta, not to the public yet. So really 2022, ChatGPT becomes available to the public for testing. And then full on Gen AI, if I had more room on the slide, I'd make an exponential curve that went to like this, right? So observe the gaps in the timeline and changes. So what do you think? Tell me what, anybody want to share what their observation is with regards to this timeline?
It's moving much faster now.
Yes. So as we move forward, the gaps between the innovations become smaller and smaller. And then when we think about the changes in 2022 and where we are today, perhaps since the launch of the smartphone, we haven't seen such huge adoption of new technology take off as quickly as Gen AI. It's just an explosion. So recently, I caught an interesting quote. Juan Orlandini, our CTO of North America, said 2023 was a year of talking about Gen AI, and 2024 is going to be their year of doing Gen AI. And I really feel that he's spot on, right? Since I wrote this presentation in September, I've had to link a lot of modifications just to make it appropriate for 6 months later. Okay, fun fact, and before I jump into this fun fact, I'm hoping who was paying attention to the last slide and kind of read along. Does anybody know what the first commercially available robot was? Mass-produced, commercially available. This is an arguable point, but fun fact. Anybody? Who here has a Roomba in their house?
I was gonna say I have a Roomba. It just did my top floor this morning.
Yep. The Roomba was, I think that was 2020 that the room came out, right? So this is another fun fact slide. The ELIZA effect. I mentioned Joseph Weizenbaum in 1964. He invented a chatbot. It was an interactive psychotherapy chatbot. So someone says, Eliza says, is something troubling you? That you said men are all alike. What is the connection, do you suppose? And then the person responds, they're always bugging us about something or another. So this is a real example from Eliza. So people felt that it was super spooky and they got really worried about it. So I know that we all have fears of Gen AI and they're not unfounded, they're real, but we have to kind of look back at history and realize that it's probably not going to be the end of humankind. We're just going to have to adapt. Okay, so we talked about what AI is. Now I want to like kind of differentiate with responsible AI and why it's important. So responsible AI refers to the design and development of AI systems that incorporate ethical and societal considerations. So it's not just developing a system, it's understanding what the impact is going to be to people. So AI advancements are different than other technologies because the pace of innovation and the impact to humans. So we touched on that a bit. If I had more room, I'd have an exponential curve. Okay, as project managers or just generally IT leaders, we play a critical role in ensuring our project teams are accountable for responsible AI. This is a very short presentation. We're not going to get into everything, but basically what you should walk away with is what is AI, what is responsible AI, and how do I communicate that with my teams in this brief presentation, right? A system must be transparent. It must be explainable. It must be easier for stakeholders to understand the decisions were made to create the models to train the data and create the output. So let's learn about responsible AI so we can share the knowledge and create awareness in our teams. And by teams, I mean our project teams, I mean our users, I mean all of our stakeholders that we think of when we make a communications plan, the owners. Okay, so I've mentioned this before. I believe Microsoft's approach to a responsible AI is a model for the industry. There's 6 key principles and 2 key perspectives that are required to make responsible and trustworthy systems as AI explodes. Everything needs to be ethical and explainable. The Venn diagram kind of shows it, and all these perspectives kind of go into, at the end of the day, ethical and responsible. So let's touch on each of these, similar to we did the types of AI. The 6 principles: fairness, ensuring AI's systems are free from bias, so we don't discriminate against individuals or protected classes. Accountability, ensuring designers, developers, and end users are held accountable for their impact of AI, and also putting in appropriate mechanisms to address harm that's caused. So what are the ramifications of that? Inclusiveness, ensuring AI systems include diverse perspectives and experiences. So one of the biggest ways that I read that inclusiveness is most appropriate is by having diverse teams, having different perspectives. So this again is a short presentation, so I'm not going to get too much into this, but I will give you some exercises that you could do with your teams if you want to cover that in the end. Reliability and safety, ensuring AI systems are dependable, trusted, and free from errors that could cause harm to people or property. The key responsible AI is the human aspect, people or property. Privacy and security, ensuring AI systems handle personal data in a responsible and secure manner. So protecting the privacy of individuals, protecting the privacy of companies, and making sure that the data isn't accessed improperly, and also if it is accessed, that's not misused. Transparency. This is not key yet, but it's going to be. So we need to ensure that all of our decision making is documented, explainable, and transparent. So one of my things I think is going to be an up and coming business is going to be auditing AI. I could see it as a cottage industry. I've actually thought about how could I get into that, but I just didn't have it in my brain yet. But I see that being the new frontier, if you will.
When you say auditing, what are you thinking, Barb?
Well, I'm thinking that um, when we train our models, we put in the data that we want to evaluate. We also have to put in training models. So there's two pieces of data. I'm going to get into some more that come in and spit out outcome. So if we look at this picture, let me cover that in this slide, I guess. That's a good question, Brad. Thank you. So socio and technical. I think I read that there was 49 new words put in Merriam-Webster's dictionary this year. I think socio-technical is going to go in there next year. So socio-technical fairness, when you think of that, we have people, laws, software, and data. As we look at this picture on the right, as I was creating this presentation, I pulled a stock photo off the internet. And in this picture, it's implied, maybe consciously, maybe unconsciously, that the doctor is a man and an Asian man. The manager is a middle-aged white man, and it's implied that the black woman and the white woman are nurses. So if we use this model, this data, or something resembles data, as our training model in parallel with the data we're trying to analyze, we would be perpetuating the unconscious bias. So what I mean by cottage industry for auditing is understanding the data that was put in, false positives, false negatives. Anybody who chooses to take the AI 900 or any of these AI certifications will learn a great deal about that. But that's what I think, Brad. Like if I were to use this data as my training model, and I spit out data that kept perpetuating biases, that auditing would have identified that. Another example might be like Indeed. Historically, IT people are male. If we use the previous past hiring data to come up with candidates for today, we're likely to continue to perpetuate IT being predominantly male, right? So we need to fix that. We at least have to not make it worse. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. I told you I was going to go over fairness and accountability. Accountability, who is responsible when AI goes wrong, right? People should be accountable for AI systems. We're people. We're choosing as IT professionals, IT leaders, the data that goes in there. Also, designers, developers, they should work within the Microsoft framework and governance. I feel like this is kind of still the Wild West. AI is, but New York recently passed laws to hold companies accountable. I think other states are going to follow. I could see it being like national laws even related to accountability and responsibility of causing harm to people, places, things by having bad data. Everything, right? So facial recognition, endless positive applications, right? But it's less accurate on people of color, and it also struggles with sentiment analysis. So in Detroit 2020, the police arrested a black man named Robert Williams based on his facial recognition identification. He hadn't done anything wrong, right? The error was caused because the training data was created primarily with Caucasian faces. And that kind of led to the biases that I was talking about earlier. Accountability. So Microsoft voluntarily stopped selling the facial recognition technology to police departments. And they retired the facial recognition capabilities that were used to infer emotional states and identity attributes. Anybody want to join in the conversation and talk about other examples that they might be able to think of? Jen?
I just started to type this out. So I just saw this art exhibit a couple weeks ago that was well, this part of it was about Chat GPT, and they first had put something in. I can't remember what the first prompt was, but they were trying to get information from Chat GPT about the LGBTQ community. And at first it would say, you know, we always want to encourage equity and stuff, but kind of the more fairly general questions it asked, the more it would start returning the common political bias responses, which was interesting. And then also when it asks for images to be generated, and specifically you say, show me 2 gay men donating blood, because the whole thing was more about the blood donation bans. Um, all of those images, there was always something weird about the faces, like an eye was too big or something. And it was kind of this fascinating but disturbing reflection of how people can be seen as other when they're not the mainstream. So that was
Yeah.
just kind of fascinating and on point and concerning.
Billy, do you want to speak? I see you're posting, but it's too hard for me to read and talk at the same time. Would you like to speak and share your thoughts?
No, not really.
Okay.
On what?
I'm sorry, that's
topic?
Barry. I'm sorry, that's Barry. I said Billy, Barry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. My fault. I'm kind of trying to look on the side and present at the same time. Thank you, Jen.
You say, Kate? Yeah. Last name is Barry. Yeah, no, I was just thinking, so this is where like I just thought of the term like technology literacy. So going back to what Billy was putting in the chat of, for example, like spell check, making people lazy. This is where kind of like critical thinking comes in of where we have to think about these AI tools of instead of it completely replacing us doing this work, it's more of just a tool to enhance this work. So I was saying for in terms of spell check, it's great if you genuinely forget how to spell something, but we can't let it just like we just spew out words into an email and then send because and then without checking it because and like what you were saying of auditing this AI, really making sure that we don't just say, oh, the computer's just going to do everything. I just have to do bare minimum work. Yeah, that's kind of what I was putting in the chat there.
Thank you. It's just hard to do both. Delbert, did you want to share something? I see you have a hand up.
Yes. So, yeah. So one of the things I'd like to point out, and for some of the people in the group that does know me, I've had multiple TBIs from my military service. So I actually used a lot of AI programs to read things back to me and also to help me do my job more proficient. And so it's something that I definitely want to point out that certain disabilities, it's not necessarily a form of laziness or anything, but actually as a form of assistance. So
Sure.
I just thought I'd point that out.
Thank you. There is there is one of the principles which talks about inclusiveness, and the philosophy is that if we develop for 3% in our design phase, that 97% will fall into place if you try and deal with the 3% that are anomaly. I read that somewhere. I didn't have enough time in this presentation to do all that. So this is a trick question, guys. So I appreciate all your interaction. I'm hoping we get more. Brad, would you please open the poll, please?
Done.
You are a consultant who has completed a grueling 2-hour requirement session with a client. It's your responsibility to capture meeting notes and action items to distribute them by the end of the day. So you're super stressed out. And this is a real world scenario. So is it okay to put the meeting transcript into ChatGPT to get it done faster? And this really happened. I had a pair of mine working at BlackRock who was a project manager for Microsoft. So we'll talk about this a little bit after you guys answer.
And I think for the purpose of this discussion, Barb, this is like public chat GPT we're discussing,
Yes.
not private company tools.
Mm-hmm. So Brad, what's the outcome? Did everybody finish voting?
It's ticking up, 14, 15. I'll give it a few more seconds here.
Sure, no problem.
As this gets to be more available to us, I mean, Copilot's available publicly now. We don't have it internally yet, or at least most people don't. Select people, special people have Copilot at Insight.
Mm-hmm.
the GPT tool we've had internally for a while, but personally, I haven't found much use of it. I think there's a few people that have had more luck with it. Prompts are really important in how you write. And speaking of jobs in the future, writing prompts and training people how to write prompts, I think is going to be a big one.
Absolutely. Brad, how did our votes come out?
Okay, so we are at, let's say, 70% no and 30% yes.
Okay. Do any of the no's want to share their opinion? I've heard Brad's perspective. Anybody want to share, before I go to the next slide, anybody want to share their opinions?
I changed mine because if it's public, then no.
Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead. Like I said, there's a bit of a trick question. So the answer is no to ChatGPT, as Brad alluded, because the client's data has unknown impact on privacy and security. Basically, you're exposing the client's data to the internet, right? I mean, I know there's all sorts of like fine print, but we wouldn't want to do that. So, the PM I was talking about, the Microsoft PM, he worked with me at BlackRock, and he had this scenario. So BlackRock just last week got Copilot, which is an AI, generative AI solution by Microsoft, but it's like being on your own private cloud for them, right? So for BlackRock. But so, there is some gray area. Like, for example, I'm one of the lucky few, I guess, who got Copilot at Insight, or we have GPT at Insight, right? But I wouldn't want to copy and paste my client's data over to Insight. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe with contractual agreements, I don't know. But if I'm to err on the side of caution, you know, BlackRock goes as far as to not use Teams for meetings recordings. And when you do a WebEx, you can't chat. There's no chat. So they're very strict out for obvious reasons, for security. And for those of you guys don't know, they're a wealth management company that manages $19 trillion a year in assets. So their security is probably more tight than most companies. So real scenario, that's exactly what happened. Anyway, so he chose not to. So even since I wrote this in September, that's changed a little bit. Copilot was just like a buzzword. It wasn't really a thing. Even for him working at Microsoft, he did not have Copilot at the time. Thank you, you guys. So key takeaways. Artificial intelligence enables the creation of powerful solutions to many of our common day problems. It also can exhibit human characteristics to analyze the world around us, make predictions, make inferences. We can do great things in a very short amount of time, but we need to be responsible about it. We need to have an understanding of what AI is and create awareness within our teams. And it's everybody, all of our stakeholders. I put project teams as really all of our stakeholders, anybody you can think of. We need to be aware of the principles of responsible AI and make sure that anything we do is ethical, explainable, documented. So if you're a waterfall project manager or scrum master, whatever methodology you are using, you should have a feature to test for responsible AI, to catch the data. And I'm going to tell a fun little story before I close out here. Computer vision. A friend of mine had an 1.5 acre small farm. It's sort of in a suburb, right? And so he had a couple horses and he had dogs and goats. He was having problems with coyotes coming on his property, right? So he worked for Microsoft. I don't know why I know so many people work for Microsoft, but he did. And he put in computer vision in his property. The problem was that when the coyotes came in, he wasn't able to differentiate them from his dogs. And so he started getting a lot of false positives. So this is a scenario, personal scenario, but if we were using it for commercial use, we would have to understand the data. And over time, as we get more and more images of coyotes and dogs and identify false positives and false negatives. So, for example, if the coyote came into the pen, he thought it was dog, or the dog came into the pen, thought it was coyote. as we get more and more data, it's going to get better and better, right? And he'll be able to smooth the edges of the imagery over time. So that's where we're going to come into play. Is as developers, we're going to have to help smooth the edges to make it better. And there's no escaping it, so that's what it is. So be aware. Make sure that these are all included in your testing, everything you have going on. Okay, I didn't have a lot of time to cover everything, all 6 principles, but I wanted to add a little bit of something here. This is an inclusive activity cards. So again, if you program for 3% or design for 3%, you're going to get the 97 other percent. It's a little activity that you can do with your teams if you want to start the conversation. Also, in our software brainstorm, I love that software. I get like so much out of that. It's software, it's little classes. I don't know if any of you haven't used it, you should give it a shot. Begin your AI journey with Copilot. That's in there. It could be either pre-recorded or you could take a live class. I think they're like 25 minutes plus some Q&A. Well worth your time. Questions? Okay, pretty quiet group. Thank you for, oh, Shelly, thank you. Shelly.
Yeah, I just want to call out, I actually just finished a Gen AI project, actually a successful one, finally. I just want to call out a few things as people think about as if they get on a Gen AI project. For Microsoft, there's only certain regions in the United States. GPT-4 isn't, able to be deployed in the United States. So like our client, we had to do GPT-3 because we deal with, and what we did was we actually did take an MSA and we input that into our Gen AI and it output what red line should be to give, we met with lawyers and such, but just a couple call outs for that because that we came into roadblocks with, where it's able to be deployed. I know that's a little different than your presentation, but something to think about as we head into these Gen AI projects.
And what did you do to verify that the red lines were at what you thought they should be?
We took we used their red line documents that they had, and that's what we trained our model on, and that's how we audited what our output was. So we matched it to their red line versions, and they actually had like a matrix of. We actually made it our Gen AI does rewrites too. So what it would, because they had already created like an Excel document with like who needs to be the approvers on the lawyer side, and also what the areas, that were being called out, they already had that all broken down. So that's what we trained our model by, which made it a little easier to get that data in there.
Good. So it sounds like it's a AI solution, but there's humans checking it as it comes out.
Yes.
So that's good. So guys, I have a little works cited page on here. You can go and check out some of the resources. Like I alluded to, we do have the ability to take the AI 900 for free if it's something you're interested in. I took a class and then took it, but there is like exam simulators and study guides and little videos. So it's self-paced and you could do it. I think we have other ones too, based on our partnerships with some of these gold partnerships with some of these other companies. So reach out, see what you can figure out. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much, Barb.
Sure, thank you.
I'm sharing the wrong screen.
Thank you, Barb. That was excellent.
Thank you.
See what I'm doing here. Don't want that one, I want this one. Technical problems, please stand by. Okay, one more. Third time's a charm. Can you see the works cited screen?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We have just enough time to finish up here. Word from our sponsor.
You're funny.
That's funny.